There is a phrase in our society which says that church and politics should not meet. In a recent report by the All Party Parliamentary Group for Faith and Society, there's been a recognition of the growing contribution that faith communities have made during the recent COVID-19 pandemic. We have also seen Christian leaders being made to speak up close to government about challenges of the church, especially in areas such as religious freedom. To talk further about this, we're joined by Graham Nicholls, who recently wrote to both Prime Minister and Sir Keir Starmer. Graham Nicholls is a director of Affinity, which represents 1,200 churches and agencies across the United Kingdom, and also connects with over 100,000 Christians. Graham, welcome to the programme. How are you doing?
I'm all right, thank you. Yeah, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Graham, it's our pleasure. Just give us an insight into Affinity and how it's helped thousands of Christians, especially during the pandemic.
Yeah, I think you'd probably divide it into three areas. One is spiritual, and I think that's the main one. We've helped by, I think, all of our churches in some way or other, carrying on preaching the Bible, encouraging times of prayer, fellowship, communion, Lord's Supper. So I think spiritually we've tried to provide the same kind of leadership, albeit not in person most of the time. I think the other area is social, or you might say in biblical terms, fellowship. So as well as the actual Bible teaching, the social connections with people, particularly those who are older and more vulnerable and more likely to be isolated. So the phone calls, the visits, the shopping, the sort of, but not so much for the practical, but for the social reasons. And then I think the third area has been the practical, where many of our churches are involved either in sort of something mainline like a food bank, or maybe just lesser so, just practically helping their own neighbours, particular people they kind of connect with in the neighbourhood that the church as sort of as a whole knows, and helping them out, providing advocacy sometimes for people who need help with getting all the benefits through this time, filling out the forms and so on. So those have been the areas really: spiritual, social and practical.
Now, throughout the pandemic, you've written to the Prime Minister and the Faith Minister, but more recently, you've written to Sir Keir Starmer. Why is it important that Christian leaders engage with politicians?
Yeah, well, I think at a pure, simple level, we have a voice. We are part of the community. We're part of the state. So why not express our opinions? And obviously somebody like myself who represents, 100,000 church people or so in churches, it's worth just speaking up and having a voice. But I think we're supposed to be, according to Jesus, salt and light, a good influence, a purifying influence, a preserving influence. So often we want to write not just for selfish reasons, like we want to preserve our freedoms, but actually for community reasons, like we think freedom of speech is a good thing, or we think freedom of religion is a good thing, or we think a particular policy or looking after our neighbours is a good thing. So we do it out of concern for our own freedoms to preach the gospel, because we think the gospel is good, but also out of concern for society. I think that the things I've written about to do with places of worship and other things are things that we think are not just so we have an easier life, but they're so community benefits. Community benefits when churches thrive, community benefits when there's freedom of speech, and the alternative views, whether they're our views as Christians or people who don't even like Christians. We want all of those to be free to speak and not to be cancelled.
How do you think we can bring more Christians into politics and stand up for our Christian heritage in the United Kingdom?
Well, it's really hard, isn't it? Because if anyone looks at the sort of social media, Twitter sphere and so forth, they think, I never want to go into politics because it's so tough, and particularly for Christians at this time. But I think we encourage by encouraging people to have a community spirit, by seeking to equip them to navigate that, by having good role models in politics, and just getting them to start small, really, to just think local. What political party most aligns, maybe not perfectly, with their views, and kind of joining up and getting involved and just seeing where it leads.
And how do you think that we can reach out to the youth, get them interested in politics, but also give them the real tools to keep up with their Christian heritage?
Yeah, I think the youth, they are interested in politics, but not in a sort of conventional way. So I think the encouragement with youth is to direct their good zeal about maybe some particular issues that sort of many young people are concerned about, whether it's sort of climate or social change, those kind of things. But to try and get them to figure out, well, particularly as Christian young people, they can't just achieve everything by protest, but to actually get involved in mainstream politics and actually be a really good influence in that, and encourage them again with young people in the past who've got into politics as Christians and been an influence for good.
Graham Nicholls, Director of the Affinity, thank you so much indeed for joining us.